Triumph Acclaim engine. One of my clients has decided that, yeah, he spent money on having it rebuilt by someone who actually knew what they were doing, allegedly, and it's lasted less than 1,000 miles. So I've decided to take it to pieces and have a check and see what I can find, which is causing problems with the running. So we'll start with the very top of the engine, shall we? The first thing I noticed is the rocker cover gasket. It is absolutely baked. It is so brittle. As you can see, there is absolutely no chance that that is going to manage to keep any oil inside the engine. So when the car came to me, the engine was absolutely awash. So we go to the top of the engine, the cylinder head. Now, when the engine was rebuilt, it had a skim. It doesn't look like too bad a job. Obviously, there's still a lot of the gasket on there. But what I don't quite understand is how much carbon is built up in just 1,000 miles. So if we then move on, we can see that we put new valve stem oil seals in, but there is no way that they chemically cleaned the head or gave it a thorough cleaning after it was skimmed. So I don't see any evidence that the valves were cleaned, ready to be reinstalled. They've just basically assembled it without getting rid of any of this thick black tarry deposit inside there. Now, the gentleman in question said that he provided the rebuilder with a new camshaft because there was an issue with his camshaft. And so a proprietary firm took his old camshaft and reprofiled it. But we can see some of the lobes are in pretty good condition. Move directly underneath the light at this point here. There we go. And then we get to these lobes here, which have got great big pieces missing out of them. Now a two-cylinder especially, you can see quite a pronounced groove worn into it. Now, destroyed camshafts are one of those things that happen on a fairly regular basis with older engines. They just run out of go. Oil galleys get blocked up, they don't lubricate properly. And generally speaking, once a good engine clean, sort out the oil pump and make sure that's working properly, and then fit a new camshaft and followers, that normally fixes the problem. But in this particular case, they've used the old followers, and the old followers have completely destroyed the lobes on the new camshaft grind. Again, looking at the state of the rocker shaft, why wasn't this cleaned? It's supposed to be an engine rebuild. I suppose when you put it in for an engine rebuild and you spend good coin, you want good results. Okay, moving on to the inlet manifold. In this particular case, the inlet manifold's got some fairly substandard gaskets. What's really interesting is they're not really... Yeah. So what we found was the manifold itself was not actually bolted on tight to the cylinder head. So we didn't get a good seal around this area here. This nut here was loose, and this nut on the top here was actually finger tight. Then we move on to the mating surfaces where the carburetors fit. I'll just get you a demonstration of the bushing involved. This particular car is fitted with key-in motorcycle carburetors, and these bolt onto the inlet manifold at this point here. But what we found was this gasket is actually split, and this gasket is squashed absolutely flat. So there's no chance of that being able to seal, and there's no evidence that we could find any sealant to make up the difference. I also found that this bolt here was loose, and looking at the state of it, I mean, it is a bit difficult to get to on the car, but looking at the state of it, it looks like someone's had loads and loads of fun with it. as much fun as a mullered. Yeah, anyway. So, yeah, that's not going to work, is it? You're never going to be able to get that as tight as you need it. Right, now then, in the removal of the cylinder head, whoever it was who rebuilt the engine decided to use a hammer in this area here. And so you've ended up with peening on the mating surface for the fuel pump. There's no way that was ever going to seal, and it was gobbing oil out everywhere. And on the opposite side, the distributor would fit into this slot here, and the O-ring on that was also rather badly damaged. So you can see evidence there's oil been pouring out of that point there. Yeah, it's not looking good so far, is it? Right, so the client actually provided new pistons to fit to the engine. So I was wondering if they were like plus sized, overbore, you know, complete grind, usual sort of stuff. So we move over to the pistons, and as you can see, there's quite a substantial amount of carbon buildup. Now in this piston, clearly, you can see there is no evidence of the carbon that's left on the rest of the engine, so these are nice and shiny and clean. If you compare this to the block, there's no way that these were together for any particularly long period of time. But what really don't understand is why the block wasn't cleaned. None of the oil galleys have been cleaned out. First thing I noticed, 3 of the 4 pistons have virtually got the piston ring gaps in line. I don't think that's going to help. What's really interesting is the scoring on these new pistons. I wouldn't mind betting that they're slightly undersized. These are quite clearly unbranded. Well, you know what that means, don't you? I'm guessing they come from a particular place that does stuff fairly cheaply. Now we were having a look at the bearings. We'll get an example of it here. And we're looking at the big end bearings, trying to work out whether these are actually second hand as well. They don't look like they've been replaced, although there's no particular amounts of goring and foreign body stuck in there scraping it up. It does look like they've gotten somewhat on the hot side. So as a comparison, I'll just fetch a crankshaft bearing. As you can see, there's quite a clear difference in the two, and again, the crankshaft bearings don't particularly seem badly worn, but they're certainly not new. And you'd have thought if someone had rebuilt an engine and charged a fortune for it, that you would have probably put new bearings in there. When we look at the back of there is absolutely no way they are brand new. Looking at the big build-ups in nice quiet corners that you don't normally notice, that tells me these have been in the engine for a very long time. But they are equally as filthy as the rest of it. So before we look at the block, we're going to have a quick look at the crankshaft seals. Now this crankshaft seal, that seems to be quite okay. It's soft, pliable, seems to do exactly what it's supposed to, seems in reasonable condition. Looks like a little bit of sealer was used where it joins the bottom half of the engine. The support cradle that goes on for the crank bearings. Now if we look at the front crankshaft oil seal, yeah, we can see the lip is absolutely petrified. This thing is, yeah, never going to seal in 1,000 years. The whole of the front of the engine was completely covered in oil. Now, one of the things that I never do when I rebuild an engine is use a second-hand cam belt. But apparently that's perfectly acceptable. Now, this is supposed to be a dry cam belt, but luckily for us, this is obviously a prototype wet belt system. I don't think Honda had intended it to be. Yeah, why would you use a second-hand cam belt? It's absolutely shocking. And go in the bin of bits that we never want to see again. Let's move those out of the way. Take a look at the block. Sump seal. Well, again, lacking a little bit in flexibility, but not the worst I've ever seen, which quite clearly it has been used again. I guess that's the power of the Honda thing. You can use some of the gaskets again, within reason. So that can go in the file B1N. The block. Oh yeah, as you can see, nobody has bothered to clean it. It is covered in thick burnt deposits. The smell of burnt oil is very strong. So it has quite clearly been cooked. Now apparently when he bought this engine as a second-hand engine to replace the one in his car, it had got a sitting seize. This is why new pistons were supposedly fitted to it. I'm guessing if they did put a hone through here, and you can see the wear where the oil rings, where the compression rings used to be, that's untouched by the honing. I guess he's just thrown a glaze buster through there. It's certainly not for enough time to clean up the bore. Barely enough to take off the dirt around the lip. But you can quite clearly see scoring down the lengths of the bores from the pistons. And that one is so big you can actually, yeah, you can actually feel the ridge with your fingernail. Again, same story. So this block will need a complete rebore and some new pistons plus size. We have so this is an oil pump that I supplied to him because apparently they needed an oil pump as well. As you can see, yeah, those two are not really kind of on the same level when it comes to clean, are they? Now when I supplied this, I put a brand new seal in there for the pressure relief valve, and that all appears to be in perfect condition, nice and clean, working nicely. But look at the crap that's stuck in the gauze for the pickup. Which leads me on to the sump. So before we get to the sump, we'll look at the cradle which goes on the bottom and supports the big end bearings, the big end main caps. And as again, you can see that they haven't cleaned any of the oil galleys out. They certainly don't seem to have cleaned the cradle in any way, shape or form. It is disgusting. So, before you part with thousands of pounds, I suggest that you really do your research first. Just don't take someone's word for it that they are a mechanic. Now the sump. So, apparently the sump was rusty because it came off an engine with a sitting seize, so it obviously been sat in a garage for a while, or a shed, or probably out in the garden growing grass, I don't know. So the sump was rotten. The man purchased a brand spanking new sump for it. Yeah. All of that in just 1,000 miles. It's not really a great surprise that he was having a few issues with the thing running. So we also found that not only did they use what looked like a second-hand oil pump, second-hand crankshaft bearings, second-hand sump gasket. How about second-hand spark plugs? Didn't even bother to check the gap was the right size. That should be 30,000ths of an inch. There is no way that kind of build-up of rubbish happened in 1,000 miles, no matter how badly an engine runs. So what else did we find? We found that the diaphragm on the distributor had a hole in it. We found the vacuum pipes leading to the air filter, all completely incorrectly wired or plumbed in. We also found one ignition lead that was knackered and one spark plug that was knackered. I really do not know how the poor gentleman drove up from London. It sounded like it was running on 2 out of 4 cylinders. So, there you go. Well, thank you very much for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned a little bit about maybe doing your research before you pick on people to do work for you. As you can see, the state of that engine, yeah, I'm sure that the customer really wasn't very impressed by the result. Anyway, thanks very much. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. That'd be really good. Thanks for watching again, and I'll catch you on the next one. Easy, people.